for renewing their membership, and also welcome 2 new members to our 110% Club, which means that they went above and beyond their membership contributions to help us with our advocacy efforts. And those 2 today are the Fairbanks Tennis Association and the Riverboat Discovery. And today's membership minute always kind of focuses on a new benefit or something that's already an existing benefit for chamber members. And today, I'd like to talk about press releases. So many of you may have sent us press releases in the past, and we just want to remind people to please continue to keep sending those. That way we can put them in our newsletter on Mondays as a member on the move highlight, and also to link them to your profile so that the community and fellow chamber members can see what you're up to, help us highlight milestone contributions or new things in your company, and help give you that added edge of exposure. So if you have press releases, feel free to upload them through Chamber Master or to send them directly to me, or just call us and ask us how you can get it on the web. All right, back to you, Sabrina.
Great, thanks so much, Brenda. So our Government Relations Committee and staff are working on a number of items right now. They've started the planning process for the fall political forums, and staff will be advertising that schedule right after Golden Days. They're also looking into the City of Fairbanks's proposal to implement a wholesale gas tax that was presented to the City Finance Committee this morning. And they'll be hosting a conversation with Chief Nancy Reeder in a couple of weeks to discuss crimes affecting businesses and to get an update from the police department. Our Energy, Environment, and Natural Resources Committee will get an update from the Tower Hill Mine project tomorrow morning, and the Transportation and Infrastructure Committee will hear from DOT about everyone's favorite topic, roundabouts, on Thursday. If you're ever interested in participating in any one of these committee meetings as a guest, please reach out to the Chamber and ask for Janelle. And now I'll go to Marissa for her President and CEO report. Marissa?
Thank you so much, Sabrina. I'm from North Pole and I love roundabouts, and I'm not afraid to admit it. I do have a couple of announcements that I want to share with our membership today. Many of you have heard that Golden Days are ahead of us, and the Chamber team is planning a set of COVID-conscious activities for us to all enjoy on Saturday, July 18th. So be sure to check out our website for information about our reverse parade, the citywide street fair, and of course, our favorite rubber ducky race. Tickets for the rubber duck race are now available for purchase at any Sunrise Bagel and Espresso stand located throughout our community, and they're also available online. So you can get out and bet on your lucky duck. The early bird drawing is just 2 weeks away, which means that your yellow ticket purchases are getting you one step closer to $1,500 from Mac Federal Credit Union. I'd like to spend a little bit of time talking today about the Grand Parade, which we are doing in reverse this year. We have heard a lot of excitement from parade goers that there will be a parade. Parade entrants this year are excited about new possibilities that are present because this year's floats will be stationary and not mobile. Of course, you can still create a flatbed float and park along the route, but you can also create a scene. You can bring your signs and inflatables. Anything that you can imagine, no wheels are required this year. We do need your entry registered no later than July 5th, but of course, as always, the sooner the better so that we can be as prepared as possible for all of the changes this year. And remember, we'll be giving your team sufficient space to physically distance in your parade spot. And finally, with our events being so spread out this year, we will need more volunteers than usual. So if you can't think of anything better to do than spend the day celebrating with your community in a COVID-conscious way, be sure to reach out to the Chamber and get your name added to the Golden Days volunteers list. You can find information about all of these events and more on our website at fairbankschamber.org. Of course, you can call or email our staff anytime that you have an idea or would like to know more about how to be part of the action this year. Back to you, Sabrina.
Okay, great. Thanks, Marissa. I'm really looking forward to those Golden Days ahead, similar to the golden art right behind me here at Venue. So now for our main presentation. We have all been affected by the current pandemic, and CARES funding has gone from national to state and now to the local level. The Fairbanks North Star Borough is establishing economic relief programs with a portion of its CARES Act funding, and Mayor Ward is here to explain the programs that will be in place, the timeline associated with those programs, as well as eligibility requirements. Bryce Ward was born and raised in the interior and has called the Fairbanks North Pole area home ever since. He was elected as the 12th mayor of the Fairbanks North Star Borough in October 2018. Ward is a graduate of Lathrop High School and received his associate's degree in business and a certificate in management from the University of Alaska Fairbanks Technical College. Mayor Ward served on the North Pole City Council for 1 year prior to being elected as mayor of the city of North Pole and served 2 consecutive 3-year terms from October 2012 to October 2018. Ward is also the owner of Ward Alaska LLC, a small general contracting company, and also owns residential rental homes in the North Pole area. Mayor Ward's civic activities included volunteering with the Boy Scouts of America in Fairbanks and North Pole. Thank you so much, Mayor Ward, for joining us today.
Thank you, Sabrina. It's my pleasure to be here to talk about the borough's CARES Act programs and what that means for our community. So to start off with, the Assembly has approved this package. We brought it to the for consideration late this last month, and they approved this as of June 18th with some modifications, several modifications to what was initially proposed. So I'll go over those changes today. Next slide. The Interior Alaska, excuse me, the Economic Development Commission has been working on a recovery plan as part of our efforts in bringing recovery and rebuilding after the pandemic. Actually, we're still in the pandemic here. So the Fairbanks North Star Borough Economic Development Commission has worked to put together a recovery plan. We do have a link on our website for a short video, which goes over the kind of highlights of the plan, talks about the work that's been done, and then the plan itself outlines specific tasks that we are looking at as an organization, as a Fairbanks North Star Borough, but then also with our community partners, how we can tackle some of these challenges that we see that have affected our community due to the COVID-19 pandemic. So I encourage you to check out that on our website, fnsb.us. Next slide. The Fairbanks North Star Borough CARES Act funding came to us as of federal assistance through the state of Alaska. The president signed the Coronavirus Aid Relief Economic Security Act, CARES Act, on March of 27th of 2000, this year. The state of Alaska received roughly $1.25 billion in allocation, and of that, the state has provided roughly $24.5 million to the Fairbanks North Star Borough in CARES Act relief. There are specific requirements that come with the CARES Act program that we've designed our programs to be in compliance with. This does not include the city of Fairbanks or the city of North Pole. They receive separate allocations and have programs that they're working on as well. We have about $18.5 million that will be used as part of that $24.5 million to provide assistance to local businesses, nonprofits, and healthcare organizations that have suffered or incurred costs due to the COVID-19 pandemic. We have 3 programs that we've established as part of our CARES Act grant program: a business interruption grant, a PPE reimbursement grant, and a healthcare interruption grant. Next slide, please. The Fairbanks North Star Borough has also allocated roughly $6.2 million for what we're calling borough response funding. This is to cover costs that the borough has incurred due to the pandemic, and we expect to incur between now and December 30th of this coming year. We also have funding that we're providing to the school district to be able to cover costs to bring our facilities into compliance with state mandates, and then also to ensure that we're providing a safe environment for our students to go to school in the fall. I think an important part for folks to understand with the CARES Act funding is that eligible expenditures must be incurred by December 30th of 2020. And so we have until the end of this year to expend these funds, and that's a high motivating factor in the development of the programs that you see before you that I'm going to share with you in just a minute, is the ability to get this funding out to the community to assist in these grant programs as quickly as possible. The funding that we have allocated for the Fairbanks North Star Borough is also specifically used to cover the cost of administering the grants. So when I talk about the grant amounts and the funding that we have available in these programs, these are truly what are going to be available to pay out in grants. The administrative costs will be covered through the borough response funding. Next slide, please. The first program that we have is the Business Interruption Grant, or the BIG. It has a pot that's roughly, that is $10 million. Eligible applicants are able to receive up to $15,000 per business or nonprofit as part of this program. Eligible applicants must have 50 or less full-time equivalents, have been substantially affected by state or local closure mandates, or voluntarily closed to promote social distancing or due to staffing shortages due to COVID-19, have annual revenues less than $5 million, and have at least a 25% loss in revenue or 25% increase in expenditures due to the COVID-19 pandemic. You must be physically located within the Fairbanks North Star Borough and be engaged in business and be in good standing as of March 1, 2020. Next slide. The next program that we have is a PPE reimbursement grant, personal protection equipment grant. There's $1.5 million available in this program. Businesses are eligible for up to $1,500 in reimbursable expenses that have been incurred due to the pandemic to provide additional PPE or masking for patrons or for your staff. You have to be physically located within the Fairbanks North Star Borough and be engaged in business before March 2020 and be in good standing with the state of Alaska. The unique thing about this program is you don't have to have a loss in revenue or any increase in expenditures under the BIG requirements. You just have to incur those costs for providing PPE for you, your staff, or your patrons. And again, we're able to do 1,000 grants of up to $1,500 as part of this program. Next slide, please. The third program that we have put in place is the Healthcare Impact Grant. There's $7 million in this program. The eligible applicants are going to be, the amount that's going to be paid out in grants will be determined by the Health and Social Services Commission. They are responsible for administering the state pass-through grant funding that we receive as a community, and we have tasked them with being able to do that same work for the Healthcare Interruption Grant or Healthcare Impact Grant. You have to have the qualifying applicants must have annual revenues greater than $5 million, have at least a 25% loss in revenue or increase in expenditure, be a healthcare business or nonprofit within the Fairbanks North Star Borough. You must be physically located within the borough and be engaged in business before March 1st, 2020 and in good standing with the state of Alaska. And so this program, the specific requirements as far as how the allocations will be made will be determined by the Health and Social Services Commission. We are meeting with the chair for the commission here in the next week to talk about those requirements and how that program would ultimately be rolled out. Next slide, please. So for the business interruption and the PPE grant, we are soliciting a third-party contractor that will help with processing applications, reviewing those applications, and then providing them to the borough for payment. That's the process that we're looking at. Everything is going to be online, and we've got a couple slides here in a minute that will show kind of a proof of concept of what that's going to look like. But the idea is that these will be able to be processed quickly, and that we would be able to do that in a streamlined fashion. Next slide, please. The Healthcare Interruption Grant will be similar. The third-party contractor is going to be working on taking the applications, reviewing those applications for completeness, and then supplying them to the commission to be able to make their allocations. Once the allocations have been made by the commission, then we will process payment from the Fairbanks North Star Borough and get those checks cut. Next slide. We currently have a request for proposal, an RFP out on the street for a third-party contractor to be able to help with grant administration, marketing of these programs to community members and businesses, and providing technical assistance to those businesses as well. That is going to not only consist of providing awareness of our programs, but also of the state and the federal programs that businesses may be eligible for that they have not yet applied for. The RFP will be open until July 20th, 2020. And so we are encouraging folks that are interested in providing those services to reach out to our procurement office as that RFP is out on the street. We're looking for a good partner in this program. You'll see the next slide that we have a proof of concept for the website as well as the application process. We're looking at using essentially what you would see as a survey tool for the application process. So it'll have a drop-down menu with options for you to select, upload your backup information. Again, all of this would be processed online. At this time, we're asking for folks to go to the borough's website, and we have a link to that here on our next slide, to sign up so that we can let you know when these programs are going to be hitting the street. We are anticipating if we can finalize the RFP, make our selection, to be able to open this by the 1st of August. These applications for these programs by the 1st of August. You'll see on your screen a QR code that will take you to our website, fnsb.us/cares. This is where folks can sign up for to be on the newsletter, on the newscast, if you will, to be able to get information about when these programs are going to be available. To kind of bring everything into wraps, to talk about the summary of the programs, we've got $18.5 million that we're going to be able to provide through these different assistance programs. The 3 programs with the Business Interruption Grant up to $15,000, the PPE Grant up to $1,500, and the Healthcare Interruption Grant, which has a total pot amount of $7 million, and that's eligible for businesses that apply to that program here in the borough. We have an RFP on the street. We're soliciting contractors to put in their proposals to help with the administering of these programs, also to help with marketing of these programs. Our applications we're anticipating to open in the next 4 to 6 weeks, and we're encouraging folks to sign up for those programs. If your business is interested, please go to our website and sign up to get more information as these programs are unrolled. And that concludes my presentation. I'd be happy to answer questions from the chamber membership.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Mayor. I'll go ahead and start. I have a couple questions myself. So first, I think it was the first slide, the business interruption program. Can you just go over the criteria, the less than revenue numbers and the loss of revenue percentages that will require?
Certainly. Our first requirement is that you have to have less than 50 full-time equivalent employees, and that you have to be substantially impacted by the COVID pandemic. And the requirements that we have there is that you have at least a 25% loss in revenue or a 25% increase in expenditures.
Gotcha.
You must be physically located in the borough and engaged in business by March 1st. Okay,
great. Thank you. And then you mentioned at the beginning about some additional funding for the school district for them to work on compliance for reopening. Can you elaborate a little bit on what maybe that budget looks like, or what processes they are currently undergoing in order to come up with that amount?
Yeah, so we've been working on proposals with the school district. We received a budget estimate of about $650,000 that would be used for school district facilities around the borough, looking at sneeze guards, hand sanitation stations, providing markings on carpet, entry-exit type of identification to make sure folks have ways to get into the building, exit the building based on their mitigation plans. But that's the rough estimate of what we have at this time.
Okay, thank you. So now we'll go ahead and go to the chat, and I'll ask Janelle to go ahead and facilitate those questions.
Okay, thank you. So first of all, I'll just say thank you to you, Mayor, and to your staff for proactively engaging with the Fairbanks Chamber and with our members about these programs. We really appreciated you, reaching out to share the information and to take the feedback that you got. One thing I did want to clarify was You mentioned it's going to take a few weeks for the applications to be available online. You said a business that's interested in applying could sign up online to get notification of when those applications are open. How would they do that?
So if you go to our website, the fnsb.us/cares, I believe if we don't have it up right now, we will have it up very soon, a way for folks to, and I've just got corrected here, it is up and running right now. Folks can go on and sign up for, you have to have an email or a way for us to contact you so we can provide that information when those applications are open.
Okay, and it looks like you did a very good job of explaining everything, because we don't have any questions yet coming in online. So I'm going to vamp maybe for a minute, but I don't know if there are any other details maybe that weren't in the slides about the process or anything that you would want to share.
Yeah, certainly. We've been definitely working on this program to make it as simple as possible to meet the obligations that we have as fiduciaries for the pass-through funding, but then also make it as simple as possible for our businesses to be able to take advantage of these resources. I will mention that these programs, the Business Interruption Grant, is not limited to enterprises or businesses. It's also open to nonprofits that have experienced these same type of issues and challenges. And we definitely recognize that there's many different services that are provided throughout our community, both by the for-profit and not-for-profit sectors. And we wanted to make sure we included those in these programs. And a question that came up in one of our previous presentations revolved around some of the challenges that the state of Alaska has seen with precluding businesses from taking advantage of these programs that maybe have already received PPP funding or other funding sources, whether it be from the state of Alaska or from the federal government. We do have a requirement that you can't claim a cost or an expense more than once for the program. So if you've already received relief funding from the feds or from the state, you can essentially double dip. However, if you have need above and beyond what you've been provided, then you are still potentially eligible for our programs. An example would be is if you had a loss in revenue of $1 million per se, and you received $500,000 from the state as part of a program, or the state and the feds, you would still be eligible for funding under our programs. However, if you had been made whole by an earlier program, then you would not be eligible for one of these pots of funding that we have.
Okay, great. Someone did ask, you had mentioned that nonprofits would also be eligible for some of these programs. Are there specific IRS designations that are or not eligible in that? I know we've seen a lot of the programs have taken on the federal rules about that 501c3 organizations maybe are eligible, but not 501c6 or others. So I'm just curious if you've defined specific boundaries there.
Yeah, so I did get a question on a presentation that we gave earlier today on that question for 501c6s, I think, and I have to look into that information. I don't have that available, but we can provide that to the membership on that determination as soon as I know.
Makes sense. Someone else asked online, are there any companion efforts that are planned at this point at the borough level in terms of economic development, in terms of pushing forward planned capital projects or other ways of encouraging economic activity?
Yeah, great question. So our economic recovery plan goes over some specific tasks in a short-term, midterm, and long-term strategy that could be done. The CARES Act funding that we have is pretty limited. If it's in response to the pandemic, then we're able to use those funds if it's providing sneeze guards or other type of infrastructure that would probably be more classified as equipment, not necessarily capital. If we were looking at reconstruction of a building or using that funding for a physical brick and mortar project, the pot that we have from the state of Alaska is not one that's eligible. There are programs that are available out there through the EDA and other federal type of grant programs that may be eligible for brick and mortar type of projects that we're looking at, but we don't have any in the works right now that we have any guarantee on.
Okay. A couple of questions came in which I think would fit under the personal protection equipment grant, but just to see if that is the case. Someone asked about, for example, if they needed to invest in sanitizing their entire office or their workspace in order to be able to reopen safely, would something like that be eligible under one of these grants? And also someone asked about audio equipment. So if they needed to set up cameras or other audio supplies in order to accommodate the social distance recommendations, would those two types of things be included under that grant?
So those type of costs would probably be more likely to be under the business interruption grant. And so you would have to meet the requirements of 25% cost increase in expenditures or loss in revenue. Under the PPE, it's really limited to PPE or masking. So if you have additional costs provided for providing those services to your staff or patrons, then you'd be eligible for that. But I would say under that scenario, it would be probably business interruption grant would be more appropriate.
Okay. And someone asked if self-employed individuals would be eligible for these grants. For example, someone who runs their own farm.
Yeah, so if you meet the requirements and you can show that you've had a 25% loss in revenue or increase in expenditures, sole proprietors are not excluded from this program.
Okay, and the only other question I'm seeing is someone was asking for further clarifications about, if there are specific types of businesses or organizations that are going to be eligible, if we can put out those details when they become available. And that's all the questions that I'm currently seeing.
So I can give a little bit of further explanation. We don't have any local restrictions on the type of nonprofit that would be eligible for these funds. However, with that being said, there are potentially state and federal requirements that we would need to make sure we're being in compliance with. So if there's a federal rule that says that a certain type of business or entity is not eligible, then that would trickle down to our program as well.
Okay, thanks, Mayor Ward. I have one more question. So a few days ago, there was news about funding that would be prioritized for childcare businesses or those providing childcare. Is that coming through the borough, or is that something that those local businesses would apply from the state?
Yeah, so it's our understanding that the state has provided additional funding, at least the first month of the pandemic, to childcare providers, and that there was discussion on additional funding that may be available. That would come from the state of Alaska. Those same businesses may be eligible for the business interruption or the PPE grant under the programs that we put in place. So our hope is that some of those businesses would be able to take advantage of this program that we have, but it's limited to the 15,000 cap.
Great, a good point. Thank you so much. Well, thanks again for being here. I think now we'll head to Jim Anderson. He is the Deputy Director for the Division of Economic Development, and he's on our call to give a spotlight on the AK Cares program. So if you have any questions, similarly during this spotlight, please type them in the comments section and we'll address them as soon as he's finished. Welcome, Jim, and thanks for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. The AK Cares grant program is a collaboration between the Department of Commerce, the Alaska Industrial Development and Export Authority, and Credit Union One, who is administering the grants. AK Cares provides grants between $5,000 and $100,000 to small businesses that are based, licensed, and located in Alaska. Nonprofits that are 501c3s and 501c19s are also currently eligible. Business must have been established in Alaska when the public health emergency was declared by Governor Dunleavy on March 11th. Must have 50 or fewer full-time employees and must not have received other CARES Act funding. The expenses that are eligible for reimbursement under the grant program are payroll costs and expenses, payment of short-term expenses incurred during the emergency, rent and mortgage payments, utility payments, purchase of personal protective equipment required by the business, business-related equipment, and expenses incurred to replenish inventory or other necessary reopening expenses. Eligibility criteria and other terms and conditions of the grant can be found on the Department of Commerce Division of Economic Development's website. Currently, there's about 1,600 applications that have been submitted, totaling about $70 million. So far, about $4 million has been dispersed, and the average grant amount is about $35,000. On June 17th, Commissioner Anderson announced upcoming changes to the grant program's eligibility criteria at a House Finance Committee hearing. The Department of Commerce and Economic Development and the Alaska Industrial Development and Export Authority are working to finalize the details. The updated program details and effective date of these changes will be announced in the coming days. In general, the changes will allow small businesses who have received PPP or EIDL funding up to $5,000 to be eligible. Small businesses that have indirectly received CARES Act money through municipal small business relief programs or other federal sources will become eligible. 501c6 organizations will become eligible, and small businesses will become eligible if they return federal funds in excess of the $5,000 cap. If there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer them now.
Okay, Janelle, are you seeing any questions?
The only one I saw that came in so far was just where would businesses go to learn more about this program?
They can go to the commerce.alaska.gov website, and there's a link to AK Cares on there. There will be frequently asked questions and phone numbers and contact information if you want to speak to somebody about it.
Okay, and I think that you mentioned it, but just to reiterate, because I know it is a question that's been coming up a lot, if a business applied for or received some other CARES Act funds, either from the federal level or from a municipal level, how again does that affect their eligibility for the AK Cares program?
Currently, if you received any CARES Act money from anywhere, you are not eligible. In the coming days, like we discussed, there will be changes to the program where if you have received PPP or EIDL money under $5,000, you will be eligible. Or if you've received other indirect CARES Act money, you will be eligible. But currently, until those changes take place, you would be ineligible.
Okay, and is there any way for to get on an email list or to receive a notification of when those changes go into effect?
Currently, there is not. The best way to do it would be to check the website. The Commerce website will be the first place that the changes show up.
Okay, I think that answers the questions that we're seeing so far.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, great. Well, thanks again to Jim and Mayor Ward for joining us today and providing all of the information to our Fairbanks Chamber community. We will put all of these links into an email for our membership and then link them as well, probably from our website. There's a page that we stood up many months ago, as many of you know, about all of the resources available to the business community. So thank you for joining us today, Fairbanks. Please consider supporting the Chamber's efforts to host a successful Golden Days coming up in a few weeks, and reach out and tell them how you can help. As a reminder, there will not be a presentation next Tuesday, July 30th. We hope you all enjoy a fun and safe 4th of July weekend. And we'll be back presenting live on July 7th, and we'll hear from Dan Britton of the Interior Gas Utility for a business update about natural gas becoming available for your home. So I hope to see you all there. Be well, Fairbanks.